What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Champion Living Podcast, the only podcast crossing the lines between the sport of rodeo and fitness. Today's episode, we are joined by a very special guest, 7-time all-around PRCA champion, Ty Murray. How are you? Yeah, wow, words are tough this morning. How are we doing this morning, Ty?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Good. Man, we're doing
Where are
good.
you?
Very good.
We're spread out. We're everywhere. I'm up in Montana. I live just south of Missoula. Logan, where are you at?
I'm in Southern Illinois, about 6-7 hours south of Chicago.
And I just got home back to Arkansas just a few minutes ago. I was at Doug's house yesterday, so
All right.
we are all over the place.
Yeah, we are everywhere. We just wrapped up one of our schools we put on for bareback bronc riders and bull riders over at Central Wyoming College with Drew Schrock. We kind of put a new spin on schools. I know you know all about rodeo schools, but as I'm sure you know as well, most of these schools are designed for beginners, like guys just coming to get their feet wet, contractors going to buck colts or whatever they would need to get bucked for their deal. And we kind of put together a new school that is focused on the development of rodeo athletes. So we've been going to colleges, putting on our own versions of these camps, and it's been really cool to see the success that guys are seeing in just 4 days of working on stuff. So we just got home from that, kind of a little tour of that. We've been doing that for about a month, but you've been all of our heroes for a hero for a long time when we were coming up in rodeo. So it's a pretty big full circle moment for all of us to get to chat with you today and kind of break this down. And not only that, you may have not known it, but I really think that you were the pioneer in rodeo to introduce physical fitness and working out and how that can actually help a guy continue to keep his career going and staying strong. So just give us the rundown. I mean, you've been a cowboy your entire life. How did you know that you wanted to be a world champion, be a professional, rodeo cowboy your entire life, or how did that come to be?
Yeah, pretty young. I decided, I'm a multi-generational cowboy on both sides of, my mom's side and my dad's side. So it's kind of, what I've been immersed in my whole life. And, to be honest, what got me into training was I saw the movie Rocky when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and it had a huge, huge impact on me. And, to this day, a lot of people laugh when I say that, but, at the age that I was at when I saw that movie, I just thought it was the greatest thing I ever saw. It illustrated what wanting something bad and trying hard enough to go after it, what could be possible. And when you're a kid, you don't know the difference in a made up movie. You don't know the difference in it being a made up movie and real life. And to me, it felt like real life. And so I started at a very young age, kind of training myself. And then I started with coaches at my schools, junior high and high school and college, training with coaches. And it took me, it took me a while to develop how to train the correct way for my sport. And, it's not just doing curls for the girls in the gym and that sort of thing. And I feel like that throughout my career, there were different things that I learned and got better with, from, I think that gymnastics, which I did all through high school. I think that was something that helped me a lot in a lot of different ways. And then, I did, in my professional career, I did a form of martial arts called Nippon Kempo, which I feel like helped me a lot. Because those two things really focused around the things that I needed as far as flexibility, fast twitch, pound for pound strength, wiry core, not just putting on, I was never trying to put on muscle. I was trying to be strong, strong pound for pound and still, maintain speed, quickness, flexibility. and so I kind of had to learn myself and see things that worked and see things that didn't work. And then, the help I got from different coaches throughout the years helped me as well. But for me, it was something that gave me a confidence to know that it was another way that I was getting prepared, especially as you climb the ranks and start to compete against, when you get to the highest level, everybody's good. So, to be able to try to find ways that you feel like you can get a competitive edge, that was one of the avenues that provided that for me. And it also, not only do I feel like it gave me a competitive edge, but I felt like it gave me confidence. And as you guys probably know, confidence is pretty important, I think, in any sport.
Absolutely, man. We talk about to hear about the gymnastics and the just getting into that at an early age, and the martial arts. I think both of those also have to help you mentally so much, because they're not easy tasks. You have to focus a lot, and there's a ton of focus that has to go into to get really good at those things. But when it comes to being a rodeo athlete, or honestly an athlete in general, those two things, especially gymnastics, are so good for you and your core strength, your coordination, your ability to control all limbs of your body and get them to work together. And in rodeo, we talk about this all the time, especially in the rough stock events. The sport demands that you use upper and lower extremities in a non-normal fashion, in a way that is not normally trained. In gymnastics is same thing. You have to be able to use those levers and hinges of your body to create the most tension, to get the most explosion and power out of that. And the same goes for rodeo. So to hear you doing that at an early age, and I think I read somewhere, did you like juggle and ride unicycles and things like that?
I did everything, that I could think of as a kid. In the summertime, we lived on a racehorse ranch in New Mexico, and they had their own training racetrack. And the inside rail was like a 2 3/8 pipe. And I would, I would practice walking that pipe until I could walk all the way around the track. And, that was something that I thought, as having that, that better balance is something that I knew would help me. And also I enjoyed the challenge that it provided, like trying to see if I could get to where I could go all the way around a track. And riding a unicycle, I think that's just another thing that helps you with your balance and coordination. And then I would try juggling while I was riding a unicycle. I'd try roping the dummy while I was riding a unicycle. Just anything that a kid could think of that I thought would help me to be a better athlete. I would try to do that. And it wasn't just something that I did just purely for that. It was something that I thought was fun and challenging too. And so it always kept me interested.
That's funny that those things I would feel like also require a lot of mental toughness, because you try walking around a rail or you try juggling, it'd be really easy to quit after the first couple times, because it's probably not going to go, you're not going to be perfect at it right away. And it's probably took a lot of practice. So I think the mental toughness development seems like it started at a really, really early age for you. But I wanted to ask a question real quick. You said you kind of, you started to involve coaches pretty early on. So like, what was the value in having coaches in different areas of your life, or was that intentional, or what was the benefit from that you got?
Yeah, I've had, over the years, I've had coaches that were amazing, and that helped me a lot. But one of the best coaches I ever had was my gymnastics coach, and he never done anything in the sport of gymnastics, but he was a boxer, and he studied gymnastics, and he was great at coaching it. It's crazy that he couldn't do any of the things that he was teaching me to do, but he studied how to teach it, and he was an amazing coach. I feel thankful for the coaches that I had, over my lifetime. And I appreciate what you guys are doing, because I feel like I was just talking about this on a podcast the other day. It's a joke, and really it's embarrassing and almost shameful, I could say, that rodeo hasn't evolved further in this area than it has. And, and that's something that we feel like with incorporating the teams in the PBR and having bull riding teams, this is something that's going to organically start to take care of itself, because now you have owners that want to win, and they're going to, and they have coaches and managers and trainers and all these different things that are going to start helping these guys to be better athletes. And, and also it just, the level that you want something is a big part of this, like, I rode with a lot of guys that were super talented, that were just super, super talented. They didn't ever put any work in towards it. And some of them were many-time world champions. There were some tough guys. But for me personally, I just felt like I was always better if I was in good shape. Not only physically better, but mentally better. When I felt prepared and felt strong and felt like I'd been putting in the work, that gave me that confidence. But then when you look at the flexibility that it gave me, the pound for pound strength that it gave me, the quickness that it gave me, when you look at, like in gymnastics, the form that it gave me, the body awareness that it gave me, the air sense that it gave me, all those things were very, very helpful. And to be able to dedicate myself like that felt good to me every day, because it never felt like, oh man, I got to go to the gym, or man, I got to do this, or I got to practice. To me, that just felt like an extension of trying to win. And so it interested me, and it was something that I didn't have to make myself do it, because I wanted to win. I had some benchmarks that I'd set for myself in the sport, and I wanted to do whatever I could in my power to try to achieve those things. And that was something that I could easily do in my power, that I knew was going to make me better. And when I look back on my career, being in great shape helped me so much with injuries. Being strong and flexible, that, and that's a big part of the game, especially in the rough stock events, and especially when you're doing all three rough stock events. Being able to avoid injury is just as big a part of it as riding good.
Absolutely. We talk about this all the time, the longevity aspect, right? We see, you said you had, lots of talented guys that didn't really put a lot of work in, even guys that won world titles. But those guys that really make a living in rodeo, what I mean by that is they're able to make an amount of money that they don't have to necessarily go get that 9 to 5. They can focus on a business they want to do after rodeo or something like that. But it takes a long time for that to happen in the sport usually. And for all of those things to go correctly, it's like the animal you're getting on, it has to line up well, that it's something you can win on. You have to go to not 100 rodeos, but a lot of rodeos every year. And for it to all go correctly, you have to be healthy and strong and have to get by those times and those animals that are not necessarily ideal to ride. And you still have to find a way to win on them. And so going to the gym, going to work with your coaches, and I love that you've talked about this multiple times, but the confidence that comes with that. You show up to the rodeo, there's no thinking about if anyone's outworked you. You've put in the work, you know what you're about to do, and you're there to win. And I think that's just, it's priceless when it comes to talking about training in any sport.
I always tell people that, like for me, to give an example of what it felt like to me, is like, how when you're well studied for a test, like in school, you can't wait to take the test because you're prepared. You know it frontwards, backwards, and sideways. You're like, bring it on. I can't wait to see these questions because I know this subject. And then you've maybe taken a test when you're not prepared and you don't really know the subject and you dread it and you don't have confidence going into it. That's exactly what it was like to me. And so being practiced and being in shape, those were the two ways that I couldn't wait for the test. Those were the two things that really helped me get to that point, both mentally and physically. And then when you have that confidence like that, now you can be fluid. Now you're not, getting tight and clamping down and freezing and just trying too hard in the wrong way. Now you're able to go out there and enjoy it and almost like take it to another level of almost turning it into art. It's like,
Yep.
sometimes it would be so easy. And now you can say, well, on top of it, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to make it more stylish. And I'm going to take my leg farther out of them. And I'm going to, and so those are the type of things that when you feel that difference, when you experience that difference, then it all brings you back on its own, because it feels so good to be in that position, as opposed to the position of, man, I don't know if I can do this. No confidence, no preparedness, and you're going in there just hoping for the best. That's not good on a test, but it's really not good when you're talking about a sport and events that you can die. That's a real thing every time. It's that dangerous. And so for me to have that edge, that was invaluable.
Man, that's so great to hear, and especially for any young athletes listening. And I want to touch back to something you said just a little bit ago. Everything you were doing when you were younger, training wise, you said that, you didn't look at it as training. It was fun. You enjoyed doing it. And I think for a lot of young athletes, especially these kids that are just getting, calf riding, steer riding, something like that, have never worked out or done anything like that in their life, get out there and go do fun things like that. Tasks that will still challenge you, but are fun to accomplish. And still, I mean, Ty was saying, you were all over the board. You're trying anything and everything that included balance, hand-eye coordination, just getting better at knowing what your body does, the awareness, and that's going to translate directly to rodeo and as your body develops. So I didn't want to forget about that. I thought that was really important, because so many people thinks that it has to be this, go to the gym 2 hours a day. It's killing yourself, and it can definitely be fun. And that's the whole point of it, I think. And that's what keeps guys doing this forever, and staying healthy and potentially being able to rodeo forever. We talk about one of our goals as coaches is we want to see Tom Brady's in the rough stock. I want to see a guy win a world title at 40 or 40 plus and be able to do it and walk away from his career on his own, on his own accord, and saying, I'm still good. I still feel good, but this is it. And I'm moving on to the next thing, rather than, so many guys get it taken away from them, but also in the same sense, maybe those guys didn't put in the work that they needed to throughout their career. And just a hard thing to look at for a lot of guys. I know. I want to talk about your career a little bit. And I mean, you're an absolute legend in professional rodeo.
Thanks.
What did Sports Illustrated said something about you, the best dang cowboy of them all or something in 1992, I saw. How do you maintain the same mindset? Winning one world title and all-around title is hard enough. When you start getting into that 7, I feel like those are, even past 2 or 3 is just an anomaly on the mindset that you have to have, and the balance of knowing yourself. Did anything change for you from winning your first world title and all-around title to that 7th? And how hard was it to trust the fundamentals, trust the basics, and know that really correct me if I'm wrong, but in the end, it's just, I've got to keep doing the same thing, the foundation I know, and keep doing those things better each time, rather than, I don't know. I feel like it would be really easy to get lost, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it can. I think for me, being so inspired by Larry Mahan at such a young age, when I was a little boy, I thought he was like Superman. And so he set a benchmark that I was able to make my benchmark and say, I want to go beat that. He won 6. I want to try to win 7. And that was when I was a little kid. And so that never left me. That wasn't something that I wanted to be a cowboy one week and an astronaut the next. That was something that was burned into me, that I thought about it every day without trying to. And so I think that your mind and body can get used to anything. And, you look at athletes that are like Ironman competitors. It's crazy what they can get their mind and body used to, and they can go and do that kind of, that strenuous of an activity, and they can do it almost like it's not like it's nothing, but they can do it easier than John Q. Public. Wait, about 1,000 times easier than John Q. Public. And so for me,
absolutely,
you know, for me, I think from the get-go, from the time I was a little boy, my goal wasn't ever to be a world champion. My goal was to better the record of the best cowboy in the world. And so, you know, I think that you're almost like more mentally prepared. You see it a lot in the PBR where guys want to win a world championship, and so much goes into it. You know, it's so much truly blood, sweat, and tears, and pain, and injuries, and coming back from things. And it's just, you know, I mean, it's brutal. It's a long, tough season, and you watch a guy that wants to win a world championship, and you always hear about the sophomore slump. Well, in my opinion, the sophomore slump comes from your body going, we did it, you know, and it's like this huge release of, oh man, I worked so hard for that. And so it's like, you're not geared up to immediately do it again. And I think where I was maybe a little luckier was coming at it from the standpoint of, I wanted to win 7 from the get-go. So for me, it didn't feel like, whew, I win that first world championship. To me, it felt like, okay, I got, you know, 1 down, 6 to go. And so mentally, that was just part of the journey. You know, it never felt like, there was never that big letdown for a sophomore slump, because that was just part, you know, to me, it was like winning the first rodeo of the year. We weren't there yet. We had to keep going. And I think that's all mental. And I think all sport comes down to, I think that the mental element of all sports is the biggest part of it. And I think that it's hard to train because everybody's brain works different. You know, I can't tell you guys how to make your brain work the way my brain did, because we may not have this. You know, when I look at great champions, I look at the guys that I rodeoed with, that we all had different ways of going about it, and different ways of being prepared, and different ways of getting the best out of ourselves. You know, and so I think that, you know, when you're talking about the things that I did, so whether it be competing in other sports or gymnastics or martial arts, not only did those things really help me physically and mentally with confidence and all that, but it also helped me with with gaming and sport. You know, like teaching yourself to walk all the way around a racetrack on a 2 3/8 pipe. That's a challenge that I failed at over and over and over and over and over. And so I was getting better mentally without even knowing I was getting better mentally, because all I was a kid that was having fun. But I learned how to get the most out of my brain in competition and not get in the way of myself. And all those little things that you learn along the way, you know, if you learn from it, that can help you. And you have to learn from it to go, okay, what works with my brain? You know, somebody else, some other champion could tell me what, you know, like Ted Noose is a great friend of mine, a Hall of Fame bull rider. He went to the NFR, I don't know, 6,000 times or something. And, you know, he's a world champion. He's ridden every ranked bull in the world. And his and my mental approach to the game was they weren't even close to the same. You know, he was a real positive, you know, power. It's a great day. It's going to be a great day. I'm the hot man. I'm, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, I never really looked at it that way. I tricked my brain in other ways, you know, and that's kind of how I always put it. Like, you almost have to trick your brain.
Yep.
So when you're doing something that is really hard, really scary, really dangerous, life-threatening, you know, to be able to trick your brain and get into a place that you are confident, collected, relaxed, fluid in a car crash scary environment, that's, to me, that was the whole test of being a professional rough stock rider. was learning how to be focused and fluid and aware and be able to have split second decision making in that very violent environment. And that was the biggest test. The basics are the basics. What's required physically is what's required physically. And and I really feel like being good at anything, it always comes down to the basics. I mean, you can go on and on about all the other stuff, that the cherries on top and the window dressings as you want to, but to be great at it, you've just got to do the basics right. And the more consistent you can be at doing the basics right, that's the key. And you can't do the basics right every time, day in and day out, unless you can figure out how to get there mentally. And it's a lot of different things that are thrown at you mentally, whether it be you haven't been riding good. Maybe that's something that's weighing on you. Maybe you've drawn a bull that scares the hell out of you. Maybe you've drawn a bull that's bucked you off 3 times before. Maybe you're battling for a world championship and the guy you're battling with just won the last 3 rodeos. It's all these different things that are kind of being thrown at you that could worm their way into your confidence. And so you've got to learn how to focus and you've got to learn how to keep all your energy going towards things that you can affect change. You can't, I see so many guys get so caught up in what they've drawn or what the judges marked them, or, all these different things they have no control over. You're wasting energy. You're wasting brain energy. You're wasting your time. You're worrying about something that you can't affect anyway. And so I feel like all those little things that I was able to do as a kid are things that helped me along in being able to keep my focus on the things that I could affect. And I feel like that, there's a lot of elements to reaching the highest part of the mountain in any endeavor. It's not just one thing. It's not just 10 things, it's a lot of things, but I feel like learning how to control your own brain is one of the most important parts. And you see some guys that they want to be dead serious or all jacked up or slapping themselves. That might work for that guy. I can't say that, hey, you don't got to do all that, because maybe he does have to do all that. Maybe that is something that helps him get to a place mentally. And it's like I said, you could take 10 champions that I rodeoed with, and you're going to see 10 different approaches to the game. As for, not the basics, not the mechanics, but as far as the mental part, the physical preparation, the way you practice, all those things like that, those are all something that you have to figure out individually. And you might need the help of coaches to figure it out. Or, for me, I think all those things that I was playing with as a kid and competing in gymnastics and doing martial arts and riding unicycles and walking fence lines and doing those things, I think they were helping me with competition without even knowing it. It was like practice without practicing. It was like I was getting better at competing. I was competing with myself, and really that's all you're doing as a professional athlete is competing with yourself, because especially in rodeo, there's not an offense and a defense. So it's not like what I do can affect what this guy's able to get done. It doesn't work that way. I got to go do the best I can on my horse or bull, and then they go do the best they can on their horse or bull. So I'm not even really competing with them. I'm competing with the bull or the horse I'm getting on and myself. And so, and when I say competing with myself, most of the time it's just learning how to get out of your own way. It's kind of like riding a bicycle or a motorcycle. They want to stand up if you learn how to get out of their way. You know what I mean? When you have momentum traveling, the gyro effect of the wheels, they make the bike want to stand up if you can just not get in its way of standing up. And a lot of the times that's exactly what it's like is not getting in your own way.
Man, that was just killer right there. Just so good. I appreciate all that. I know, Logan, I can see you wanting to say something. Do you have something to say?
No. Yeah, I loved all of that, because it just reminds me so much of the conversations that we have on a weekly basis with clients about outcome goals and process-based goals. And I love that the goal was never just to win a world title. The goal was to win 7 of those suckers, to be the best. And I resonate with that in my career of that feeling of, I did it. I accomplished that thing, whether it was a tough horse that I drew or a big rodeo that I wanted to win or something like that. I can resonate with that feeling of like, and then it was like the next day you like wake up and you have to go do it again, and you're not mentally equipped to be able to go perform again. And so I just love that. And that's what we tell guys. Everybody sets their goals and they say, I want to make the NFR. And then everybody bunches up right around that 15th hole. Subconsciously, they've set their mind on just making it. And then when they get there, they're not equipped and prepared to take advantage of the opportunity of those 10 days because they've already accomplished it. They can get their back number in their jacket and they can turn around and go home because that was where they mentally have set themselves subconsciously all year long, was just to get there. And a lot of times those people come.
That's like that sophomore slump, and they haven't got to their sophomore year. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mine was set up for that, and then it was like, whew, I did it. And they haven't prepared. And the other thing that I've always tried to explain the way that I approach things is when I hear people talk about goals, I think it's important to have goals, but I think you have to decide what your big picture goal is or your long-term goal is. But then you kind of put that way in the back of your subconscious, and you've got to concentrate on the goal that's at hand. So like if you're talking about a football team that wants to win the Super Bowl, well, that's all fine and good. But if you're not doing excellent on the first kickoff of the first game, then the Super Bowl may not even come into the equation. And so with that big picture stuff, that can't really be your focus, because if you're going to keep using football, as our example, every inch counts, every effort counts, every moment counts. And that's where you've got to stay. That's where you've got to stay, to me, as a competitor. Because like I say, you're getting thrown a million obstacles every day. And, like I said, it might be snowing at the rodeo you're at and you're cold and miserable. You might be sick. You might have a horse that you've had horrible luck with that doesn't fit your, doesn't really fit your style, or there's just all these things that are going to keep coming at you that you've got to be able to stay in the moment and win that obstacle now. And then on to the next obstacle. If I'm not there presently at every moment of the whole entire season, then my goal of being a world champion or being a 7-time world champion or whatever, that's not ever going to be a part of the equation anyway.
So we've kind of talked about the last few minutes, like being resilient, like in victory. So like, something goes right and still being resilient enough to keep it going, right? Riding the hot streak. But I get a lot of questions about guys coming back from injury. And I know your story, I've read your book like maybe 12 times. So like you have multiple reconstructive surgeries, like back to back to back. So that in a guy's rodeo career, like that is like the darkest of dark times. So what was the mindset in there, and did the goal change, or did the plan change at all, or was it still, sticking to the same game plan through that whole process?
For me, it was sticking to the same game plan. I think I was 25. I was 24 or 25 when, I'd won 6 all-around championships in a row. And then I missed the 3 back-to-back years kind of in the prime of my career with injuries. So I tore a knee up that I had to get fixed. Actually, I got both knees fixed in 95. I came back in 96 and tore up a shoulder. And I got surgery on my knees, rehab my knees like crazy. Come back the next year, hurt my shoulder. Got surgery on that, rehab that shoulder like crazy. Come back the next year and tore up my other shoulder. So I'm a slow learner, but that's when, you know, I'd never been at a point in my life that I had taken that much time off. I'd never taken a month off. And so being out for 6 months or 9 months with surgery, I didn't understand at that point that my body had gotten out of riding shape. And though I was training, I was more focusing on getting my injured limb back. So I was really focused on my knees. Well, my shoulders weren't getting the attention that they deserved. So it wasn't until, you know, that third injury that I said, hey, I've got to get in riding shape to be able to come back. I can't just focus on fixing that shoulder. I've got to fix that shoulder, and I got to have every other part of me like a nail. And, you know, that was when I enlisted the help of a 4-time national champion martial artist, and him and I would train together every day, just him and I. And, you know, and not only did he help me physically, but he helped me mentally too. I remember, you know, I would do 2,000 sit-ups. In your core, you can train it to where you can't get it tired. Like at the end of 2,000, I could do 2,000 more. We were just bored and ready to move on to the next thing. And I remember one time with him, when I first started training with him, we were doing this exercise where we're doing literally thousands of reps. And he would do it right beside me. This isn't something where he was just sitting in a chair telling me what to do. And that really motivated me too, because I thought if he can do it, I can do it. And I remember one time it was killing me, and I was making this horrible face doing this exercise, and I had my eyes closed and I was making this face. And you know how you can feel like when somebody's right here? I opened my eyes and he's staring at me right here, and he goes, "Why are you making that face?" You know, and I was like, "This hurts." And he's like, "Well, is making that face helping it?" He said, "All you're doing is wasting energy." You know, so there's little things like that you're accidentally learning along the way that are going to help me with other things. And he's 100% right. Making that whiny face and, "Oh, this hurts, and I'm going to make this face because it hurts." That's not helping me physically or mentally doing that. And, you know, and I would see him when it got the hardest. I'd look over at him and his face would be like this. And that's powerful stuff right there. So again, that goes back to what I was saying about being able to affect the things that you can change. Making that face wasn't changing anything. You know, making that face wasn't making it easier. If anything, it was making it harder mentally. And so, you know, there's a good example of a little thing that I learned along the way that just helped me. But when I finally learned how to prepare my body in the way that it was organically prepared my whole career, because like those first 6 all-arounds that I won in a row, I was in riding shape that whole time through all 6 of those years. So my body was ready to go to rodeo every day and compete in all 3 events every day and on to the next one and do it again the next day and the next day and the next day. Well, you take those 6 months off, and even though I was going to the gym every day and rehabbing that whatever injured part as hard as I could every day, I wasn't getting my body into the place that it had always been. And when I finally realized that and buckled down on that, that's when I was able to come back in 1998 and win my 7th all around.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much embodies what we try to teach. But I mean, like Doug had said earlier, like you kind of pioneered the whole thought process behind, you know, we need to develop ourselves as athletes, and you know, basically what I've gotten from this conversation is you've been doing that your entire life, whether it was intentional or not. You've been developing yourself as an overall athlete. So yeah, with all of the like the mindset and the physical toughness and everything, like how did this carry you into like the business aspect, like starting the PBR and any other businesses that you've done since then?
Well, you know, everything that I know come from being a cowboy. And, you know, starting the PBR, we're not business geniuses. None of us were. It wasn't like we had this amazing business plan that we were going to follow. We had something that we believed in and were passionate about. And we had all rodeoed. When I'm saying we, I'm talking about me and the other founders, and guys like Tuff and Cody and Jim Sharp, and a lot of us guys. We had something that we believed in. We had a career that we had been doing, that some of the things we thought could be better. And rodeo is an association, and that is the major difference in rodeo and the PBR. The PBR is a sports property. And so with an association, it's more of a member-driven car club sort of atmosphere, where the members that are in the association, they're deciding on the different things and the decisions that you have to make. And, and everybody's kind of saying, well, what's best for me? And, you got the rough stock riders pulling at the bone of what makes it best for them, and the timed event guys pulling at the bone of what makes it best for them, and the specialty acts and the committee part. And, it's all this fragmented parts of an association all going, well, this would work better for me. Well, that would work better for me. Well, as a sports property, we wanted to make all of our decisions based on what was best for our consumer, the fan. And, through really all we were doing was the things that we saw other sports doing. We knew that every time you turned on the NFL on Sunday afternoon, you were seeing pro teams. You were seeing Tom Brady. You weren't seeing Joe Smith because he paid his dues also, and it was his turn to be quarterback. We want to see Tom Brady. And so these are the things that we were able to kind of just change a little bit to create this sports property that where when fans tuned in, they knew they were going to see the very best guys against the very best bulls. And that was our biggest challenge, was getting all the guys to stick together and say, look, if we're going to do this, and we're having 8 events this year, and you're the top, at that time, I think it was like top 45. And if you're one of the top 45 guys, you've got to be there. That's our product. That's what we're guaranteeing. And so, I've been asked this a lot. Like, did you ever think that this investment would turn out the way it has? Did you ever think that it would grow the way it has? And I'm like, no, not really, because it was never an investment to me. Like I never looked at it as a financial investment that I would one day get a financial return from. I looked at it as a way that I could pay $1,000 and I could have some input on what I thought would make the sport better. And that's all it ever really felt like to me. And I think that's a big part of what helped it to be successful, because sometimes when you're starting something new, or a business, or some kind of entrepreneurship, there's things you have to do to stay afloat. And so sometimes you're basing your decisions on what's going to get me some income to keep this thing afloat. And we were never making decisions that way. We were making the decisions every time on what was best for the sport. And luckily, and with the help of sponsors, we were able to stay afloat long enough to start to get some traction. But when I look back, I've never really made a decision that said, hey, this would put the most money in our pocket, this would put money in our pocket faster, any of that. It was always, what's best for the sport? What's best for competition? What's best for the integrity of the sport? What's best for the fan? What's the best way for them to consume this product? And a lot of it was just doing things differently than an association does things. And what I mean by that is, when it's an association, if you're a 10-time world champion, you've got you're not really any further ahead than Joe Gump over here that bought his card too. And, he's won $2,000 in his life, and you've won 10 world titles, but you're basically the same. And you might be at Cheyenne Frontier Days, and you're looking over at the chute at a bull that you have no chance of winning on. and Joe Gump's in the next chute, and he's got the bull of the year, and he has no chance of riding him. You know, so it was those sort of things that you know, we wanted a competitive landscape to where it was not a drawing contest, and I can say that we've achieved that. And you know, there's still going to be times where you may not have drawn a bull that fits you the best, but I can guarantee you, if you go to all the PBRs and you ride everything, you're going to be the champ. And that's not a drawing contest. That's all you got to do is go and get your job done, and you're going to win. And at one time, that was just a dream. You know, I remember the first finals we had. You know, Cody Lambert, who was our livestock director, he told one of the stock contractors, he said, you know, because we weren't hiring a stock contractor, we were telling all the stock contractors which one of their bulls we wanted. And back then, you know, this was in 1994. Cody told one of them, he said, "Look, if you can't be 80 points on this bull, we don't want him." And the guy started laughing. He goes, "Ha, that'll never happen." You know, and now it's basically you can be 90 on about every one that goes. Every single one of them bucks. Every single one of them. And so, you know, you rewind back to 1994. That was just they just laughed at us. They just thought we were this, you know, band of crazy bull riders that come up with some cockamamie stuff. But that was just a dream that we had, and that's just comes from living the other side of the coin, where you may go a month rodeoing and not win anything just because you didn't draw anything that you could win anything on. And so that was just something that we dreamt about, and to now see it just be it's just part of the deal. Now, if you go to a PBR, you're going to get on a bucker, and that's just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a re-ride. It doesn't matter if it's what you draw it. It doesn't matter long round, short round, none of that. Every time you nod your face, you're on something that bucks. And to see guys be able to have that kind of opportunity just makes me so happy to see it, where a guy's not going, well, you know, I'm the best guy, but I haven't drawn anything I could win on in 2 weeks.
Yeah. We see that in the horse riding a lot still, even though it's gotten a lot better since since before, like when we were going, things like that. But the PBR, I'd say there's even a surplus of bulls that you can be 90 points on versus how many guys can actually ride those caliber of bulls.
Right.
So that's why I'm really, you know, and hopefully this trend of guys paying attention to their physical fitness, working out, taking care of themselves, working on every single thing that it takes to be an actual successful professional rodeo athlete and a world champion. So hopefully we see more guys like that showing up, where it does turn into, you know, not just one or two guys dominating, but we see a whole field, you know, 10 to 15 guys, where it is an all out riding competition, and things get, you know, even more exciting. It's only going to enhance the sport as well if things start trending that way.
Right. And, you know, I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. It's something that I've always believed in, and something that I think is important. The problem is there's only going to be a certain amount of people that are going to be proactive enough to come and invest the time and the money and stuff that it takes to do this. What I like about coming up with the team concept in the PBR is it's going to happen organically. It's just going to become part of the game. And so, you know what I mean? So that kind of makes it where you just kind of have to step up, and it has to get better. And, you know, now that it's a place where, hey, you're either going to put in the work and start getting the results, or you're going to be sitting on the bench or getting traded or just canned, for that matter. And so those are the type of things that should elevate the level of competition. And that's, you know, I think that's what you want to see in any sport. You know, nobody wants to tune into football and watch one team just crater everyone else to the point where, you know, there's no hope for any of them. You want to see a good contest. And you know, I've looked at that my whole life and career, that it was embarrassing to me it wasn't more professional, that there wasn't more management and coaching and really a plan like you see in every other sport. It doesn't matter if it's tennis, football, baseball, basketball, soccer, car racing. You go down the motorcycle racing, I mean, just wrestling, whatever, go down the list. All of them are training their ass off with coaches and trainers that have experience in getting people to that level. And we are the only sport that doesn't have that. So to see these things starting to get a foothold is huge to me. It's what I want to see worse than anything, because I think that the quality of sport and the level of competition is going to go up huge because of these things.
Absolutely. We talk about that all the time here, and the sport already by itself is elevating. The amount of money a guy can win each season is increasing in big amounts. You know, we're talking about at the school this weekend. We did our numbers off of 2022, but it took a guy $130,000 to make the NFR in 2022. This year, what was it this year, boys? I think 150, 160,000, something like that. It's only getting, those numbers are only increasing because of the money that's being put into the sport and the events that are being held. And so for a guy that's young or a girl that's young that really wants to take this seriously, the sky's the limit. I think we're only going to be seeing an uptrend in money being added to this. I think that the Western way of life is definitely something people are trending towards now, just socially. The honesty, the integrity, the just how the people are. We just see a really big swing of that. So it's a cool time to be a young rodeo athlete. I think the sky is the limit, and if you take all of these things seriously, you'll be writing the history books, that are already there and already really impressive. So it's really cool. What are you doing? What do you do now to keep that competitive spirit alive? What keeps you going?
Well, I really love riding single track with dirt bikes, and that's I didn't even know what a motorcycle was, and a friend of mine talked me into getting one. He was into it big time, and he talked me into getting one, and it's something that I've really fallen in love with. The challenge of it, it's difficult. It takes great technique. It takes commitment, and if you're hesitant, like in bull riding or bronc riding, if you're hesitant, that's when it's not going to go good. And so, but it's not something that I want to compete at. It's something that I enjoy and I do as a hobby, and I do, as much as I can for fun. It challenges me. It keeps me in great shape, and I'm doing it with a group of a bunch of great guys, and we camp out up in the mountains and ride all these challenging trails that can wreck you out pretty bad if your skill level doesn't come up and your level of commitment and all of that. So that's something that I enjoy. Again, it goes back to just those things that just like when I was a kid, that I think it's fun because it's challenging and I like seeing how much better I can get at it. But, I have a young family. I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son, and I have this ranch here in Stephenville, Texas. And really, by the time you look at, how much I dedicate to my children and my wife and the ranch and my horses, and I love starting young horses. I love making horses better. That's another big hobby of mine, something that I really enjoy. And when you look at all those things all put together, I feel like I have a full plate. The thing that I've really been adjusting is the level of work that I do and the level of travel that I do. I've really cut that back to almost nothing, because I feel like it's so important that I don't miss, all these things with my wife and my kids. And, they're things that you don't get back. And, my daughter being 5, I can already look back and see things that are now gone forever, things that were first time things or or things that she did or said, or, you know, the funny stuff and all those different things. When they're gone, they're gone. So I'm trying to make sure that, you know, I don't have regrets there. I want to be here for all of it. And so I feel like I've got my life, you know, adjusted to a pretty good place where I can enjoy all of that. I also feel very fortunate that through being a cowboy, that I'm, you know, that I'm able to be in this position where I can enjoy that stuff.
Absolutely. Man, being present is so important, and especially in today's world where it's so easy to get caught up in that rat race. And you know, when you're on the road traveling, it goes by in the blink of an eye, even faster than you know it already is for you being home.
Yeah.
I don't have any kids, but I know Logan and Paul talk about that all the time. So
it's a ride.
It's really cool that you're able to do that and staying active. Go ahead, Logan.
No, I was just gonna say it's a ride. It's yeah. You thought winning 7 world championships was tough. You parent a 5-year-old little girl for about an hour by yourself while your wife's gone. Holy smokes! You want to talk about mental toughness?
Yeah,
I feel
it's challenging, and it's you know, I always tell people it's the hardest, best thing you're ever going to do. You know, like it's very, very, very hard, and a lot of it, you know, you don't know the outcome of the things you're doing now. You may not know the outcome of it till down the line, or maybe years from now, or maybe months from now, or whatever. But you're trying to figure this out as you go, and you're trying to, you know, provide good examples and be those things for your kids. And that's a full-time deal. You know, it's a full-time deal, but you know, the amount of, you know, you can talk about love and all that stuff, but until you become a father or a mother, I don't think you really truly understand what love is. Like when, you know, when you hear that stuff, I feel like one of those old guys, you know, saying all the stuff that I used to hear, but it's a fact. You really get an understanding of what true love is.
Yep. Can't agree more with that.
Man, that's
whenever they hand you your baby.
Just to wrap this up,
whenever they hand you your baby and the
moment
it hits your hands, you die for it or kill for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a feeling that's freaky, that you can't explain that or understand it unless you've experienced it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then when they turn you loose at the hospital, and they're like, all right, so it's you guys are good. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with? So I'm responsible for keeping this thing alive? No, can we just stay here for like another year or two? What am I supposed to do with this thing? And you know what? Just like you said, you figure it out. You just figure it out one day at a time. And it's so different than rodeo, because I can do the things on the spur board in the gym. I can go to the rodeo and I find out exactly where I'm at, right? I get a performance update right then and there, and I know what I've done right or what I've done wrong. And like you said, with parenting, it's so hard, because who knows when you're going to find out if the discipline or the encouragement or the ways that you're trying to raise your children, how that's going to turn out. Time will tell. So you learn as you go.
Right. Yeah, and letting them, you know, scuff their knees, and letting them, you know, it's my tendency to want to be too protective, and that, you know, that's they've got to go out and experience the world. And, you know, I always call it scuff their knees. And sometimes as a parent, it's hard to sit back and watch that, especially when you see it coming. But that's, you know, if you're overprotective, you're robbing your children of valuable lessons and life lessons that they're going to need, and all that down the line. And that's hard, you know, when you really love something and care about something that much, and it's that important to you. It's hard sometimes to make the right call, but it's imperative. I always, you know, you was talking about when they turn you loose from the hospital. I know that feeling so much. And I always tell people, it's like somebody giving somebody a colt that they've got to start, but that person's never had a horse before. Like that, you know, that's kind of what it feels like.
Exactly.
Really? Like, what I do?
Exactly.
And so a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That's a perfect analogy for it too.
Sounds like a perfect analogy. Yeah. Perfect analogy. Something we ask every guest that we have on the show, Ty, and you are already, man, you're already a rodeo legend, but what is your legacy that you want to have to leave behind? And, it could be for the sport, it could be personally, it could be all of the above.
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a big answer. Um, at a time, there was a time in my life that rodeo really defined me, and it was all for me, it was all there was. There was nothing else. Going after the quest of trying to be a 7-time all-around champion. That was my whole world for the first, 29 years of my life. That was the only thing I thought about. It was the only thing I worked at. It was day in and day out. And now I'm in a different place where, I'm not going to say it sounds silly, but I can't imagine now at the place I'm at, that being the most important thing. I think that once you have a family and a wife and kids that you care about so much, and a life of seeking comfort and happiness, and being a good parent and being a good example, and helping your kids to navigate this world down the line. That just feels like such a bigger, more noble thing. And that being said, I'm not trying to discount what I was able to do in rodeo or anything like that, because I'm so thankful for it. It's provided me everything that I have and everything that I am and all the opportunities that I've had, and it's still a huge part of me. But your views as you go through life, your views change, and your perspective changes. And so this part of my life feels just as exciting as that part of my life did. And now living it through my kids, like now I go to a 5-year-old soccer game, and I'm more nervous than I ever was at the NFR. It's like, it's funny how that kind of affects you, and you just want to see your kid, be able to reach their potential and play the way they expected to play, and get the things done that they wanted to get done. And then not be that parent, that's, so I remind myself just to sit there and I cheer, but I I don't want to be that overbearing parent either that thinks my kid is always the best and should win everything. So, but it's fun. It's fun being able to, see the world through their eyes, and get to help them along on their journey with living life. So, I guess to answer your question, I've always said that I didn't want to, I didn't care about being remembered as a good bull rider or a good bronc rider. I wanted to be, an all-around cowboy, and that doesn't just mean in the rodeo arena. I want to be a good horseman. I want to be a good stockman. I want to be a good rancher. I want to be good at managing cattle and grass and ranches, and all the different parts I want to be a good stockman. All those things are pretty much still important to me, and they're things that I still work at. It's something that still interests me. Every day I'm still trying to be a better cowboy is what's funny. I guess it's what I was programmed to do kind of my whole life, and that hasn't left me. It's just the things that I'm trying to be a better cowboy at now are different than they were. But it's still something that I work at on a daily basis. It's still something that matters to me. But, I hope that how I'm remembered, I would rather be remembered as a good person, a good man, a good dad, an honest guy that did what he said and said what he meant and meant what he said. And my kids, look at me like, wow, that was a great dad. And, that feels so much more important to me now than a whole bunch of people that I don't know and never will know, what they think of me as a rodeo cowboy or any of those things. That doesn't feel that important to me now. What I leave behind for my kids and my family, and what they think of me feels, I don't want to live a life that my kids go, well, my dad was I don't want to be selfish. I want my kids to know I gave them everything that I had. And I don't mean give them stuff. I mean, pour my heart and soul into helping be there. Me and Paige, my wife, I talked to her a lot about, I read a quote the other day that said, you know, it's not important to prepare, or it does. I can't remember exactly how it went, but it said something about like, prepare your kids. Don't prepare the path for your kids. Prepare your kids for the path. And I thought that was a pretty good quote, because I think sometimes we can try to make everything so easy for our kids, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think that's doing them an injustice, and so I hope that that my kids, when they're grown and they're adults, and maybe I'm dead and gone, I hope they look back and go, man, I had a great dad, and my wife says, man, I had a great husband. I feel like, and my friends go, man, I had a great friend. I think that that's something that feels more important to me now.
Man, that's awesome. I resonate with that a lot. I would say that we're all probably around that, along the same lines of just wanting to be good humans, which is why we're doing the things that we do, helping people out. Ty, I cannot thank you enough for coming on here today with us and chatting and just kind of spreading your wisdom and telling your story here. And I know we have a lot of listeners that are going to love this episode. Where can people kind of keep up with what you're doing today's world? I know you have social media. What's your Instagram, Ty Murray?
What is it? I think it's Ty PBR, I think. And then
Find it.
Okay. I do some Facebook things with horses that some people enjoy, and I don't know. I guess that's just Ty
I
Murray.
enjoyed those a lot. Those are really cool.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and it's something that I enjoy.
Your Instagram
doing.
is at Ty Murray PBR. So
Ty Murray PBR, yeah. That's something. That's another thing that really is something I'm really passionate about, is trying to help people to gain a better understanding of horses and the way horses see the world. And a lot of the things that have been passed down for generations and generations is not good information, and it's like trying to beat a square peg through a round hole in trying to interact with a horse in a way that makes sense to a human. That's not how the horse sees the world, and they don't,
Right.
And so things that I can do to maybe help people to maybe see better ways, and that how easy things can be when you work with a horse from a place that makes sense to a horse. If I can be a part of a little element that helps horses get a better deal, that's something that's important to me, because I feel like they're just such an awesome animal that's in most cases is really misunderstood. I know I misunderstood them for a long time. For the first 20 years of my life, I feel like I'd win the battle and lose the war. I was making their feet do things and hoping their mind got on board with it. And now that I see that when you can work through their mind, they'll put their feet where you want them for you. And so that's something that I'm trying to kind of help to share and to help get people to see, because I see people that just keep beating that square peg, and it's no closer to going through the hole than it was 10 years ago, and they're still beating it. And, that was where I got that was what made me at 20 years old start seeking better horsemanship. I was tired of beating that square peg that wouldn't go through the round hole. And I was tired of doing the things that I'd been taught that didn't work. And I was tired of having a horse that didn't like me and didn't trust me. And I was cowboy enough to stay on him, and I was cowboy enough to make him do what I needed him to do. But that's not good leadership. That's not a good relationship. That's not good anything. Everything you do, it's no different than life. If you're a dictator if you're a maniacal dictator, life sucks for everybody. And if you're just a boss, life sucks for everybody. But when you learn how to truly be a leader, things can really change and things can really get a lot better for everyone involved. And that's really true in horsemanship as well. And, there's been some great hands over the course of time that have helped to spread that message. And if I can help to spread that message and get people that are at high levels of competition to see that this is going to give them a better competitive edge to when the horse has an understanding instead of just, they don't learn through repetition. That's been proven forever. And that's where you're just making their feet do something 1,000 times and hoping that their brain gets on board with it. And there's still so many people that think that that's how you train a horse, is you just make their feet do something repetitively. That's mind numbing for them and me. And when you start to work through their brain, you figure out when they have an understanding of it, they got it the first time, and you never have to revisit it. If it's 10 years later, they still know it and understand it. And that's powerful stuff that makes a cowboy's life a hell of a lot better and a hell of a lot easier. And it makes every job that you do funner and better. And whenever you have a horse that likes you and trusts you and understands you, everything about it just goes so much easier and smoother and nicer and better. And, I always say that you can't unsee good horsemanship. And so it's shocking to me the people that will vehemently defend bad horsemanship. It's crazy to me. And I don't know if it's ego or what it is, but it's amazing to me that you'll still see some people that will argue with you till they're blue in the face about, beat him over the head, cram him, shove him, make him, whip him, beat him, and those sort of things they're working against themselves. They're never going to have a good deal, and they'll argue it to the death. And I don't understand that, because when you see a better hand, for me, I couldn't unsee it.
I love
Definitely
that.
An ego thing, I would say.
Yeah, and
I think that goes.
You're talking about training and horsemanship, and the entire time that you're discussing this, in my mind, I'm thinking about the world of strength and conditioning, because it's the same thing, right? When we're working with clients, and I love what you said about you could make their feet do things and hope their mind caught up. And there's so much new things out there, I'm sure, like horsemanship, new research and new understanding. We don't train the way that we did in the 80s and in the 90s. There's a lot of new developments. And a lot of times we are working at really communication with clients. And it's one of the ways in which we all want to grow, is how we can effectively communicate. This is not what you're used to. This is not what you think you need. But if you'll trust me and trust the process, you'll see in time, this is going to be best on your body. And it's such a difficult thing. And just like there are so many respected horse trainers out there that are going at things completely backwards and have large followings who all will argue with you. We have the same thing. We see the same thing in strength and conditioning. And even in the rodeo world, there's quite a few trainers and coaches out there that are doing things that were outdated 15 or 20 years ago. And they're preaching, this is the way, this is the way. And it's like, well, science has shown for 15 years now that that's actually not the way. Can you do it that way? Well, sure. Is it the best way? No. And so anyway, I love your approach to horsemanship, because it directly, in my mind, directly correlates with what we do for a living as well.
Yeah, I want to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah. Yep. And that is like the hardest thing to do for people, because that requires you putting your ego down to the side and saying, okay, what I was doing may not have been the best way, but this right here can make it way better. I'm going with that. And I think that's, man, that's it. Smarter, not harder for everything is going to make your life go a lot better, a lot better. Ty, like I said, man, thank you so much for coming on today. We're just more than tickled to have you on the show. And I know all of our listeners are going to take a lot away from this. Well, thanks. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I appreciate you having me on the show, and I wish
I wish all of you guys good luck. I hope this business just keeps growing and getting more successful for you, because I feel like it's something that's very needed. And hopefully 50 years from now we're able to look down the line and be able to point back to things like this and go, that's where the game started to change. And I think that what you guys are doing can help with that. I think what the PBR teams are doing can help with that. There's all these little elements like this that hopefully one day they're just the norm. They're not the unconventional, but hopefully it becomes the norm where everybody's working smarter instead of harder.
Couldn't agree more, man. And I think we're definitely on the right path for seeing the change and the upswing in rodeo. And we're excited about it. Everyone, until next time, we'll catch you later.